Dustin and Aaron, can you tell us how this project got started?
Well, I took Rick's class. Like, I'm sure there's other students here as well.
What was your grade?
What was my grade?
We don't grade.
He said I had
in the
charisma,
class,
but my material
but
needed
he,
work.
he passed. I mean, people laughed at his act, and he didn't throw up or fall down.
True.
On
That's
the
a
comedy
pass.
stage. Yeah, it's a pass.
But yeah, I just
He's
ended
very
up,
funny, very funny.
I just ended up coming to class earlier and earlier every day and just kind of listening to him, talking to him, and
Stalking.
it sounds kind of cheesy, but the idea was just to do something nice for him. It was somebody that had never called a single favor in ever, and I've known Aaron for a very long time, and spoke to him, and initially it started as like a 3.5-minute piece, and then Rick didn't think one comic would be in the film, legitimately.
Well, it was a bit opportunistic on our part because Rick was going to be in an episode of the second season of the Louis Show, and we had like a month's lead on that. And we said, let's shoot something really quickly. Rick is interesting. We'll put it together. We'll put it up on the internet. He'll be on Louis. Then who knows what'll happen? And
Is that the episode that we see in the film?
No, it was after.
It was
after.
subsequent to that. So it was that was from the first season. He was in another couple of episodes. We knew that was coming.
It might have been something else.
Well, again, we were, the new season was coming, but
Right.
that was, definitely.
We've
And
been
then-
shooting for 15 years.
I know.
Well, no. But that was the very beginning. Then, Dustin, who is the hustlerest hustler I know, saw Colin Quinn at the Cellar.
Well, let me say first that I asked Rick, like, hey, who were
You're
two
right.
really close, because it would be nice to have maybe two comics in it. Asked Rick.
Right.
Rick was too nervous
Said
to
no.
ask.
Said no right
so
away.
yeah, eventually, I actually personally to finish this project, as I quit my job. I moved out of my apartment, so it was spending a lot of time at the Olive Tree and the Comedy Cellar. Met Colin Quinn, and Colin was nice enough to do it.
He was the first interview.
And Colin,
We did the
snowballed it.
first interview, and afterwards, Dustin and I kind of looked at each other and had the same thought, which was, we have to keep going. And after that, it sort of snowballed.
It was way more than Rick was.
Leading,
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
giving us, and we knew it was a much bigger story that we then had felt compelled to follow. But that was kind of the first domino to fall.
Rick, can you bring us up to date what you're doing now?
Sitting here with you. Well, I'm still teaching the classes. I have so many former students here. I have so many students here.
So they're not working?
No, they're here.
Rick,
No, many people here who have gone through the classes are performing all over the city now, doing small clubs and some larger venues and things like that. And then I've been fortunate enough to do some acting. Over the last several years, I let my hair go gray, and I was on the Nightly Show as Bernie Sanders, and of course, I'm in the Post with Steven Spielberg and Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks and HBO's Divorce. And over the years, I've been able to do. Oh, you know what happened?
You tell me.
I got 3 years ago. Well, anyway, I got cast recently, last season, in 4 episodes of a series. Pretty good, right? Right? You're gonna do 4 episodes this year. A little show called House of Cards.
Maybe you've heard of it.
And I went down to Baltimore and I shot a lovely scene with Robin Wright and in the Oval Office. And then 2 weeks later, the scandal broke. So I too have been fucked by Kevin Spacey. That's my whole point of that. So between acting and writing and teaching my classes, I have a kind of a full plate. And I'm old, so I'm exhausted. I don't do much else.
You're like the Kevin Bacon of sex scandals.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. And I like to watch. So
Rick, when you saw the film for the first time, what made an impression on you?
I think the people, just all the wonderful people that I've been able to associate with over the years, from the very famous to my wonderful students, and it's really quite a. You think about it, sometimes you get depressed and you get lonely, and then you look at the film and you go like, oh my God, I've got so many wonderful people in my life, including these knuckleheads. that it cheers you up, and it makes you feel valuable. I still can't watch the film. I mean, I was in the hallway the whole time. I watched. It makes you a little self-conscious to watch it, but I think that's what it is. Looking at it just to see this wonderful history, and I fell into all of this. If I hadn't done Chicago City Limits, the improv group, Chicago, we would have not come to New York. We would have not been at the Comedy Cellar. I would have not met Bill Grunfest. Bill started the whole thing. And isn't it amazing how one thing leads to another, and you just don't expect it? And then from the comedy club, my first Broadway show as an actor, funny story, I was doing stand-up, and Jay Binder, a casting director, wanted to find some comedians who could sing for this musical called The Goodbye Girl with Martin Short and Bernadette Peters. And I weaseled my way onto that audition. It was up at Stand Up New York. Had I not been a stand-up comic who happened to be able to sing, I would have never gotten that show through a regular casting call. I never would have got it because he was looking for comedians who could sing. So it's, one thing leads to another, and it's just fascinating for me to watch the process and see how it all came together.
And that's what happened with
what?
Even myself, of meeting you, and it's
Exactly.
the same. We had the same,
Right. So don't piss people off on the way up, is what I'm saying. I think probably more Steve Martin, and if you go back to the comedians who did that kind of variety act, you have to go back to, Martin Mull. Do you remember Martin Mull with the guitar? You remember Martin Mull. And there was a guy named, and you look back at Tom Lear in the 60s, who would do comedy songs, and the Smothers Brothers, that kind of satirical songs, and then pivoting to doing regular jokes, and then back to something musical. I was a very big fan of variety artists. And I don't know, as a kid, I'd watch people like Danny. You remember Danny Thomas, Marlo Thomas's father? Marlo Thomas, she was married to Phil Donahue. Phil Donahue had never mind. But those old type of entertainers always fascinated me more than regular monologists. They would come out and they would sing a hilarious song, like Danny Kaye would sing a hilarious song, and then he would tell some jokes, and then he would just be a variety entertainer. And as I said before, I always thought that more was more. And I loved that you could go from this to that. And then at the end, they'd sing a sad song, and the audience would cry. And I don't know. To me, I thought that's everything you had to do. But that's what I was influenced by when I was younger. And Tom Lear, of course, you can't take that away from the mix, because that was a big one. Do you remember? Have you ever heard any Tom Lear? Go on the YouTubes and look at Poisoning Pigeons in the Park and Red Skelton. Sure, all of those.
Thanks very much for coming. Thanks especially to Rick Crom.
Thanks for having
Dustin
us.
Sussman, and Aaron Rosenbloom.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dustin. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you so much. My pleasure.